Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Japan once again, and we're returning to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, these guys are still a relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves over the last couple of years, and if people were to ask me about them, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. In recent times though, they have been diversifying quite a little bit and trying lots of different styles. They've done a number of different sour IPAs. I think I've seen some black IPAs from them in recent times as well, and also some different lagers. And the beer that we're going to have a look at from them today is another style that I haven't tried from them before. It's a style that I really do quite enjoy. It's one of their latest releases as of the time of filming, which is October 2025, and I have heard very good things about this one. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head over to Japan. We're going to go to Aichi Prefecture, which is pretty much right in the centre of the country. It's home to the city of Nagoya, and we're going to go out to the east of Nagoya to a little place called Nagakute, and that means we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Totopia Brewery. So this particular beer is called Jellyphobia. It comes in at 8.5% ABV, and this one is a West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this one is a very new release. I think I got this one in Wine Rack here in Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken, and they do seem to get a number of the Totopia beers. So yeah, always keep an eye out for them, but when I saw a West Coast IPA, I knew I had to try this one because I hadn't seen one before. But yeah, it's got very good ratings. It's a style I really enjoy, so let's crack on and see what this one is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Totopia Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future because their beers come here to Hong Kong regularly and I do really love their stuff. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go into the channel homepage, use that little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly, of course, because I go to Japan quite often to visit my son, and we do get Japanese beers here regularly in Hong Kong as well. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Totopia Brewery once again then. So, Totopia Brewery, as I mentioned to you a minute ago, are based in Nagakute in Aichi Prefecture, just out to the east of the city of Nagoya, and the brewery was founded back in 2022, and it's the latest venture of the team behind Beer Pub Brick Lane in Nagoya, which I do recommend that you check out. So Beer Pub Brick Lane was founded back in 2014 by Junya Morita and his wife Akiko, along with 3 other friends, and it's basically become a well-known beer and burger spot in the city. You can check out my out and about video that I did there if you happen to be interested. But the following year, they started the Nagoya Craft Beer Market map, and they started market research in the US in order to form their own import company, which began importing American beers into Japan back in 2017. They then opened up their own beer shop, which is called Used Like New Beer, in 2018, and this also acts as a sandwich shop as well. I do still need to go and check that one out the next time I'm in Nagoya. But at this point, when they had their beer shop up and running, they decided that they wanted to get into brewing beer for themselves, and so they started planning to form their own brewery. The name Totopia was chosen as a combination of the Japanese word toto, which means like precious, valuable, revered, and also utopia, which is like, you know, an ideal society, hence Totopia. Very popular way to name breweries and other items in Japan, incidentally. They love combining words like that. But the location of the brewery had originally been planned as Seto City, but this had to be changed suddenly, and they found their current plot of 600 square meters of land in Nagakute, which is out to the east of the city, and the brewery was built there, and they released their first beers during the second half of 2022. And they do plan to kind of divert their focus as much as possible to using local ingredients, and they are working on harvesting their own hops as well, from what I understand. So over the last few years, they've continued to develop the infrastructure of the brewery. They do have a little area at the brewery these days as well, where you can go and kind of sit and drink the cans. That's something I do need to go and see about at some stage. But yeah, they do have their main kind of home, if you like, in Nagoya would be the beer pub Brick Lane, which, as I say, does very good burgers, and they've got some really nice stuff there. But yeah, as of October 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 190 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, which is pretty good going when you consider they've only really been producing for about 3 years. So that's at least one new beer per week when you think about it, more than that in honesty. But yeah, they are definitely best known for their New England hazy IPAs. Their sour IPAs are always very good, and yeah, in recent times they have been practicing and doing lots of other different styles as well, which has been nice to see. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Totopia Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at this beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. But there you can see the jelly that they're scared of on the can there as well. So a lot of the Totopia beers are named like something phobia. And I have seen more beers being called philia at some point. So yeah, I don't know what decides whether they're scared of the object or whether they really like it. But yeah, this one is called Jellyphobia. As I said earlier on, it is an 8.5% West Coast double IPA. This one is hopped with Chinook, Nectaron, Simcoe and Nelson Sauvin. It's also got a little bit of Simcoe. Well, Nelson Sauvin is in cryo form, and they've got a bit of Simcoe cryo in there as well, which it always shows you on the side of the can. You can see that for yourself. But this little kind of magic carpet with the cross on it, I guess we can say, is the symbol of Totopia Brewery, and there you can see it in the text as well. But yeah, artwork on this one, as I say, is quite nice, and the artist's signature is just up here. I don't know who actually does the artwork for the Totopia beers, but it's always pretty interesting. But yeah, you can see plain silver top on the can there. Really, really nicely presented, this one. 500 milliliter can, incidentally, which is quite common among Japanese craft brewers. But yeah, I don't think we really need to say much else about this one. When it comes to the hops, we know these ones fairly well. Chinook is, of course, an American hop, about 12% alpha acid. It's known for its big pine resiny character and quite strong grapefruit. Nectaron is a newer hop, about 14% alpha acid, again, New Zealand this time. Usually gives you a lot of apricot and pineapple from what I remember. Simcoe, 12% alpha acid, American. It's going to give you a lot of really soft kind of passion fruit as well. In a West Coast IPA though, it's going to be a little bit more oily. And then Nelson Sauvin, your classic high alpha acid kiwi hop there, 16% alpha acid, white green grapes, gooseberry, those kind of flavours. So yeah, the hop composition in this one, or the hop bill I should say, will probably be quite interesting. But let's get the beer out into the glass and see how we go. The Jellyphobia, 8.5% West Coast double IPA from Totopia Brewery in Nagakute, Aichi Prefecture in central Japan. So let's do it. Let's see what we've got here. Bit of smoke on the opening then, as we got the can ready. But yeah, let's see what this one is all about. So we've maybe got about 50% of the beer, 60% maybe, out and into the glass. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one. Not too much in the way ahead in this, which is quite interesting. But yeah, you can see that this beer is just poured with a very slight kind of soapy, foamy layer there. If you look at that, we bring it up to the camera, you can see it looks pretty interesting actually. This beer, you could probably pass this in terms of appearance for it being like a Helles lager or something like that. So yeah, this one really does look a bit like a kind of Pilsner or something like that, to be honest with you. I don't think I've seen a West Coast IPA that's quite as blonde as this in quite some time. So yeah, pale golden straw I think is the best way to describe this one. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malt that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts you put into the beer, will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when we're talking about beers under the IPA style umbrella, if you can call it that. But yeah, when it comes to the West Coast IPAs, a couple of technical things about this style. In comparison to the New England IPA, West Coast IPAs rely primarily on barley malt in their malt base. It's not unheard of to use a little bit of oat or a little bit of wheat. Seen that done in quite a number of beers, but New England IPAs of course have quite a lot of wheat and oat in them, which is why they have that more kind of hazy appearance. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to this style too, there's sort of two ends of the spectrum. You've got the more sort of bready, biscuity end of the spectrum, which I suspect this beer will be at because of its colour, and you've also got the more oily, caramelly end of the spectrum. The more oily, caramelly beers I would always compare to Sierra Nevada Torpedo. The more bready, biscuity ones I would always compare to the likes of Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing. Those for me are two of the kind of benchmarks when it comes to this style. But yeah, just looking at this one and the pale golden straw appearance it has, I'm definitely going to think this one is more kind of bready and biscuity in terms of its flavour profile, but of course we'll see that a little bit later on. But you can see this beer, it is pretty damn clear. The condensation on the glass though is making it seem a little bit naturally hazy to you, but if we wipe that away, yeah, you can see it is pretty damn clear. There is a little steady stream of carbonation coming up the centre of the glass from this one, but yeah, not too much I would say, and you can see that the beer poured with virtually no head there, but yeah, very, very pale golden straw colour this one. As I say, this is the kind of blondest West Coast IPA I think I've come across for quite some time actually. So yeah, I think that's everything that we really need to say about the appearance of this beer in all honesty. So let's go on and have a little look at the aroma and just see what we're getting out of this. So yeah. Now I'm going to say straight away, the aroma of this one, it isn't overly pungent, to be honest with you. You get the things you'd expect, but I think that there's yeah, you do get the things you'd expect out of this one, but they're not overly aggressive, if that at all makes sense. Yeah, I think for me, this one, it's quite old school in a way, even though, you know, Nectaron is definitely a kind of more new school hop in comparison to the other ones. Yeah, Nelson Sauvin, Simcoe and Chinook have been around quite a bit. So yeah, this beer's got a little bit of a kind of old school classicness to it, which I really enjoy when it comes to the style. For me, a West Coast IPA should be a big, bitter, dank, kind of punchy sort of thing. But yeah, the aroma on this one, as I say, sits back a little bit. But let's just try and break it down for you and describe it a wee bit more in depth, if you like. So yeah, I like that with this one. The backbone of this beer then, to break it down for you, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's maybe a little bit of touch of brown bready bread crust as well, but I've got wee bits of there's a wee bit of woody character coming out of this one. Let's see, white bready bread crust, brown bready bread crust, little touch of woody note in there, definitely getting a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker as well. But the malty backbone in this beer actually gets sweeter the more that you smell of it. So yeah, I'm getting little bits of kind of wholemeal brown bread with a little bit of sweetness to it as well. There's definitely a bit of a sweeter white bread in there too. And then on top of that, you're getting all of the kind of brown sugary notes coming out of the beer. Although the vast majority of it is like a very oily biscuit. I mean, the biscuity character in this beer really reminds me of like McVitie's digestive biscuits, and it's quite concentrated as well, and you can smell that slight booziness in this beer. So the malty backbone in this one, I'd say it's nothing surprising if you know this style, but it is like really pretty nice, I have to say. Yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really very, very nice. So gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like that with this one. I don't know if there's too much else to say about that malty base. The yeasty side of the beer at the back of the nose, for me, the yeasty side of this one is, it's like a kind of, it's got like a sweet sort of brown bready character at its core. Yeah, so like a sweet oily brown bready character at its core. Then you can smell there's a little bit of a softer and slightly drier white bread as well, and there's elements of bread crust and kind of yeah, there's elements of kind of bread crust and kind of crackery notes to that as well, which I do really quite like. Yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about it other than that, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer in honesty, but as I say, it gets a little bit sweeter the more that you smell of it. So let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So when it comes to brewing an IPA, there are three types of hoppings that you can do. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour or so of the wort boil. It gives you a very deep, dank, oily green component, and it's responsible for the vast majority of your bitterness. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil or so. A little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and a very bright green component. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that one is all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you yeah, it gives you a very kind of bright green component, I think we can say. So when it comes to the West Coast IPAs, they tend to use all three types of hopping, which is why they're deeper, danker and more oily, whereas New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more kind of juicy. There are some West Coast IPAs though that use mainly late addition and dry hopping. They've kind of softened them up a wee bit, and you know, a lot of that is because many kind of newer craft beer drinkers have come in with the hazy IPAs. Then when they go to the West Coast IPAs, they find them too bitter. So yeah, there's things like that going on. But I do have a feeling that this beer might have a little bit more kind of bitterness to it. The more that I smell this one, the more the kind of dankness comes out of it. So we'll see how that plays out in the flavour. But yeah, it's not overly dank in the aroma. But yeah, with this one, when it comes to the green component, I would say there's a little bit of earthiness to this beer. So yeah, definitely a little bit of earthiness in there. There's some nice kind of, yeah, there's some nice floral aromaticity to it. I do get a wee touch of the pine resin, which is something you'd expect from the Chinook, but not too much. Quite a bright floral aromaticity, lovely kind of zesty, grassy characters coming out of it as well. But yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about that, but the Chinook, presence of the Chinook in there is really quite pungent. But I think the cryo oil, the Simcoe and the Nelson Sauvin cryo oil is smoothing out that green component a little bit. And it's interesting for me trying West Coast IPAs now with all these kind of new hop oil products that are out there, because when I first got into these back in 2013, 2014, 15, when I was starting up the channel, these things just weren't that, it was all the hot pellets back then. So yeah, that's one of the things with these newer West Coast IPAs that's interesting to see how the cryo oils behave and all the new hops that weren't there back then too. But yeah, I think that covers the green component. When it comes to the fruity side of the beer, it's kind of what you'd expect in all honesty. Like you have got that little bit of oily tropical fruit in there. For me, yeah, the Simcoe passion fruit is really obvious in this one, but there's a little bit of a peary element to it as well. The pineapple from the Nectaron is there. Quite a bit of apricot in this one for me as well. And there's maybe just a little touch of the stronger grapefruit from the Chinook too. But yeah, on top of that, you've got the big oily Nelson Sauvin coming out of it. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one I think is really nice. So yeah, the Nelson Sauvin character, that white green gooseberry thing, it doesn't jump out of this beer as much as some of the other ones that I've had, but you can definitely get it and you can definitely pick that up. But I think the Simcoe and the Nectaron and that little bit of Chinook, I think they dominate over the Nelson Sauvin a little bit in this one, but we'll probably get more of that in the actual flavour. But aroma wise, it's very nice. As I say, passion fruit, pear, apricot, pineapple for me, the kind of more dominant part of the fruity aroma in there. So yeah, it smells lovely, this one. I'm just very curious to try it now. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time for us to taste this one now and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the Jellyphobia, an 8.5% West Coast Double IPA from the wonderful Totopia Brewery in Nagakute, Aichi Prefecture in central Japan. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, skål, cheers. Yeah, I have to say, this one, pretty damn good. I'm going to say that right away. It's actually it's a really nicely balanced West Coast IPA, this one. And I'll tell you something too, the bitterness. You see how long it was since I took a sip of this one? The bitterness in this builds really nicely into the aftertaste. I don't know if this is the very first West Coast IPA that they've done. Certainly the first one that I've seen. But if they can do them this well, I do look forward to having more from them. But yeah, the bitterness, the Chinook in this one is giving you that punch that you used to get from the really old school ones. So yeah, I'm just going to say straight away, I'm very satisfied with this. Yeah, that is good. So big thumbs up to Totopia for this one. As I suspected it would be, it is at the more bready, biscuity end of the spectrum. So yeah, so well done this, and it does give you a lot more bitterness than the aroma might have you believe. But yeah, let's just break the flavour of this one down then and describe it for you more in depth. But it really does give you everything you want: the oily fruitiness, the kind of sweetness, and also the big hoppy bitterness. So middle third of your palate then. The backbone of this beer, lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a little touch of woodiness in there, and there's a kind of smattering of Jacob's cream cracker sitting on top of that. These are things that you always get. Sitting on top of that, there's a layer of like a slightly more dry wholemeal brown bread. Reminds me a little bit of like Swedish knäckebröd, or I think the Danes have that as well. But yeah, it's got a little bit of that almost kind of knäckebröd kind of thing to it, the very dense Swedish Danish crackers. But yeah, wholemeal brown bread for sure. Then above that you've got a fluffier white bready layer, which comes from the barley malt, of course. I do suspect there's a wee touch of Pilsner malt in this one, and we'll come to why that is in just a wee second. But yeah, it's a West Coast IPA. This is really pretty damn impressive. I like this one. So yeah, as I say, you've got that kind of slightly fluffier white bready layer in there from the barley malt. Sitting on top of that though, there's a more sort of crisp layer out of this one. And as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So the next layer up from the white bready character is a little bit more, how do we say, it's just a little bit more kind of smooth further forward. But yeah, further back on that middle third of your palate, you really get the kind of big crisp dryness coming out of this one. So yeah. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. On top of that then, on top of the kind of Pilsner, the sort of Pilsner malty crispness that you have, you start to get that little circle in the middle of your palate there. And that is one thing I would say about this beer, is that the malt base is quite light, so the booziness is quite apparent in this one. You can say that about this one for sure. So yeah, the circle that you've got in the middle of your palate, you can feel the sort of brown sugary character coming out of this one. So around the edge of the circle, you've got the more McVitie's digestive biscuity kind of notes, the sort of crispier side of the biscuit. But in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that more oily, concentrated, boozy side of the biscuity character coming out. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. And I think the sweetness in this one, like I said, it does build into the aftertaste. So in some ways, I find this beer to be quite sort of straight shooting in a way. It doesn't do anything unexpected for the style, but it just does it very, very well. You know, you can't ask for more than that these days. So yeah, I think we've covered the middle third of the palate with this beer then. Let's go to the back third of your palate and cover that. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. The brown breads in the base, the fluffier white breads in the middle, then the more crisp Pilsner malty characteristics are just sitting on top of that. But then yeah, as I often say as well, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. So yeah, the base of that back third of your palate is the white bready bread crust, which was a little bit drier and more kind of grainy in a sense. The next layer up, you've got more of the, you've got a little bit more of a kind of crackery note coming out of this one. Then you've got the wholemeal brown bready sort of layer which sits above that, which is a little bit lighter, taller, and more airy and dry. You can say the same about the barley malt white bready layer that sits above that, but then yeah, the very top of that, the malty side of that back third of your palate, you get a lot of the kind of Pilsner malty crispness there. And then yeah, the yeasty character sits on top of everything else on the back, on that back third of your palate. So yeah, for me, the yeasty side of this beer, it takes a bit of a backseat to some of the other stuff, but at its core, it seems like it's got a more, it seems like it's got a more dense, wholemeal, brown bready sort of character to it as well. So you get that big, dense, wholemeal, brown bready sort of thing. Then as you move further out from that, it shows you a little bit more of a kind of crisp white bread, kind of Pilsner malty influence almost. Then yeah, the very edge of it's like a slightly drier, bread crusty, kind of crackery note there. But the yeasty character into the aftertaste in this one just kind of lingers there and adds a wee bit of dryness to the beer, almost. But yeah, this beer does become quite dry and bitter into the aftertaste, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, definitely, back third of your palate, you can feel that the flavour is that little bit taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more, which I certainly do quite like. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer, in honesty. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, you can feel the Chinook kind of pine resin and spicy bitterness. So it's almost a little bit spicy. So as you come further forward from that, you've got that deeper, danker, more kind of piney resin quality in there. And as you push forward towards the front corners of your palate, it's absolutely got a little bit more sort of floral aromaticity, and it's quite spicy, like I said. Round the front curve of your tongue though, you've got that bit of lighter, more grassy, zesty sort of thing. All of that, as I say, I suspect will be coming from the Chinook in this one. It's quite a powerful hop, especially if you use it in the kind of pellet form. What I am a little bit surprised about though is that the cryo oil that's been used in here not smoothing out pardon me, that green component a little bit more. But that tells me that Chinook is probably the one that's been used as your early edition hop in here, because it really does give you that bit of punchiness that you always would want from the style. You know, Chinook and Columbus were always the ones that were going to do that. But yeah, I think we've said what we need to about the green component. Let's go to the front third of your palate then and look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the brown bread in the base, the kind of white bread in the middle, then the slightly Pilsner malty character on top. Then you've got all those bready layers in there, the kind of brown bready bread crust in there, the Jacob's cream cracker, the wholemeal brown bread, fluffier white bread, and a wee bit of smoother Pilsner character. Maybe a slight bit of the sweeter biscuit creeping forward too. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll the way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at the fruity side of things then. But yeah, fruity side of this beer, for me, I do really quite like as well. That is one of the things I will say, that this beer, the fruity side of the beer and the malty side of the beer, if you think about what you would expect based on the aroma, that's what you actually get in the beer. So it really does kind of concur with it. In terms of the fruity side of things then, at the back of that oily bubble that I was talking about, the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a bit of that stronger grapefruity character coming out of the beer. But as you move further forward, you get the nice oily kind of passion fruity note from it, which is the Simcoe all the way. The grapefruit's coming from the Chinook as well, I should say. But then as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it's all about the that you've got this kind of drier apricot-y character underneath, but a lovely kind of pineapple-y character sitting on top of that. But yeah, as you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's the Nelson Sauvin that's coming out, you know, that white, green, grapey, gooseberry, oily kind of character. That really is very obvious in this one. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this one, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the flavour profile of this one, but I will say the grapefruit and the sort of punchiness of the grapefruit and the pine resin really do push their way out into the aftertaste with this beer. But some of the sweetness lingers there too and just balances the whole thing out. So yeah, it is. The other thing I would say about this one is that overall it's actually quite a dry and bitter West Coast double IPA, this one. But certainly if this is the very first West Coast or West Coast double IPA that Totopia have done, it's a very, very good start. So I look forward to seeing more from them in this style category, because I've really enjoyed this. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour section. Let's round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So as we said, this is one of the more dry and bitter West Coast double IPAs that I've had in recent times. I would say that overall, the beer itself is actually quite it's kind of mid-bodied. It's very clean, very drinkable. It's got a slight degree of oily slickness to it. You have to remember that with it being a Japanese beer, it's always going to have that drinkability element to it, because, you know, in the Japanese mindset, a beer is supposed to be light and drinkable. It doesn't matter what flavour it is, whether it's Imperial Stout or whatever, it should have that drinkability element. And also, Japan is a volcanic island, very good quality water, and you can always taste that in their beers. I'm particularly sensitive to that as a Scot. We're very proud of our tap water, of course. So yeah, this beer's got a lovely kind of cleanliness to it, and that sort of promotes some of the slickness and cleanliness in the beer. In terms of the hoppy side of things, this one is at the higher end of the IBU spectrum, like 90 or 100 IBUs would not surprise me with this one, and you get more and more of that, especially the further into the aftertaste that you go. And then yeah, your malt base, it's a little bit kind of drier underneath, it's smoother in the middle, then you've got the kind of oily sweetness on top there, and yeah, the fruitiness that's coming out of this one, it's lovely and all. You've got a wee bit of citrusy character, as I say, from the Chinook, but you've got that lovely oily, slightly drier tropical fruity note as well from the Nectaron and from the Simcoe in there. Then the Nelson Sauvin just adds that little bit of oiliness as well. So yeah, that white green grapey charactering, sort of gooseberry note there on the front of the tongue is lovely, and you get more of that the further into the aftertaste that you go. But all in all, a lovely West Coast double IPA, this one. I'm very pleased with my first encounter with this style from Totopia, but I'm not surprised that they've done it so well. But this one, it really does have that very old school kind of 80, 90, 100 IBU punch to it, which is something I've been missing. So if you want a nice dry and bitter, bready, biscuity leaning West Coast double IPA, this one is going to be right up your street. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Jellyphobia, at 8.5% West Coast double IPA from the wonderful Totopia Brewery in Nagakute, out to the east of Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture in central Japan. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are as well from Totopia Brewery, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. I think I've got another hazy to look at from these guys, which I'm very excited about as well. So yeah, you can look forward to that video in a couple of videos time. But in the meantime, check out my social media, check out Totopia Brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kanpai.